Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. I'm Angela, and this is.
Kat.
And usually we do this show every Monday, but we have some changes coming up. Kat and I are going to take a little bit of a hiatus, mostly because I need it, and I'm not going to deny it. I have a lot of
That's
changes
okay.
happening in my life right now, and I had to take some things off my plate. So I just want to thank Kat and all of our watchers and listeners for coming to the show, for listening, for engaging, all of the above. Yeah, I, I, I don't know that I have much more to say. I mean, I'm just so grateful.
And I just want to say I'm very grateful for doing this with you. I love these conversations. I will miss them, but with the holidays coming up and all the insanity that is, it's probably a good time. But I do want to, people who have viewed our show, maybe you've caught us once or twice. Um, all our back shows are on Facebook, so please go back and if you haven't seen them yet, watch them, like them. Uh, Feel free to keep in contact with us, whatever is going on. If I can say this, I still will have my show Breaking the Lens of Bias every Thursday at noon Central Time, and maybe have some more things in the works.
Ooh, exciting. Well, they can also go to if they don't watch on YouTube or on Facebook, they're also on my Damaged Parents. So if you look up Damaged Parents on YouTube, the shows are all on there. They have not been put into a playlist as of yet, but that is in the works. It will be the Kat and Angela playlist on that channel. And of course, the podcast is still going. Relatively Damaged, the podcast by Damaged Parents is still going, and I will be continuing the segment with Kyle on Thursday. Thursday's here, Friday's there, because he's in Australia. So, um, yeah, just clearing off the plate for a little bit. So it's just a hiatus. Uh, we'll be back. We just don't know exactly when that is or what it's going to look like. So, uh, yeah, just super grateful. In fact, I think that kind of my amazement in doing this show ties into the topic today. Can you live in amazement? Like, that's how much gratitude I have for Kat and for this show and for the topics that when I look back, I can look back in awe and wonder and go, wow, those were really interesting conversations and very insightful. And even if the listeners didn't take anything away, which I hope they did, I certainly did. Always.
Absolutely. Doing this has made my life so much richer. And so, and I think when I came across a quote that we'll introduce today, and that kind of just reminded me of how I have made this shift in my life and how I'm trying to live this statement. And so okay, I can go into it. It's from Abraham Joshua Herschel. Our life, our excuse me, let me start over again. Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement, to get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed.
Wow, I just want to take that and apply it to my pain.
Sure. We have
as
this
you're
discussion, yeah. But yes,
what
sure.
as you're reading it, I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, can I apply this to my pain?" As many of you know, I have complex regional pain syndrome, and I am actually in the middle of a tremendous flare up, which is impacting my ability to think and um, find my words. I mean, things like that. It's tremendous. So let's see if I can apply it. Now I've got it down here, so I'm going to look away from the camera here. So everything is phenomenal. Can my pain be phenomenal? Why not? It's phenomenal that It it's got to be telling me something. Um, I'm asking myself the hard questions on the show today, okay? And if you think of one, Cat, feel free to ask me. I'm gonna go with yes. It is phenomenal in the sense that it is teaching me. It you know, I yesterday, I remember the thought of I mean, I've been mean all weekend, I'm not gonna deny it, right? Like, I was cussing, and I was short, and I'm like and I didn't notice until yesterday, and I'm like, "Oh, huh, okay, something's happening." And I knew that I was in pain, but I thought I was doing a very good job at managing it. So it now has become this phenomenal lesson where I'm going, "Okay, am I regulated?" And I'm also noticing how much more I need to go into meditation and things like that. Um, so that makes it a phenomenal teacher. My pain is being a phenomenal teacher. Huh. Okay. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Let's see. Well, and it talks about taking nothing for granted. I'll tell you what, when I can do, I'm definitely not taking that for granted. I might also not be taking for granted my anger and my frustration. um, everything's incredible. So when you were talking about reading the quote, I'm also thinking of, what my body does sometimes is my the temperature changes without notice. Of course, my body, I don't know that everyone would understand that, but so my hands might get super cold or they might get super hot, or I'm gonna have burning here and burning here, but not over there. Like it is incredible what the human body does. And it is, it can be sad and it can be happy and it can be all of those things. But what amazes me is that my body is still doing these things that I don't totally understand. Um, I can't, I hope I don't treat life casually. Um, I think if anything, my pain has taught me to be more willing to take care of myself. Because if I overdo it, and part of this is one of the reasons for a little bit of the hiatus, because there's a beyond my pain, there's a lot of other stuff going on. Um, but I have appreciated and loved every single show, even the shows where I'm like, oh, are we gonna keep going? I don't know. Can I do this? Like every single moment was amazing. And as I look back and think of that, like I learned how to be more in the now, and this is part of pain too, right? Learning to be right here in this moment. And how do you do that? And for me, sometimes it's how do I love my pain so I can be present in this moment? Because, I think it's Byron Katie that talks about pain. And even by the time I notice it and recognize it, it's a past memory. So is and even by the time I check now, it's still a past memory. Like I'm never so it's like trying to I can be in amazement about the games that I get to play with myself to find that peace, to find the present moment, and to be consciously aware of what's happening. I think I hit all the topics in the.
Absolutely, and that's beautiful. And I think, a lot of times things come from a moment, but they wind up being much bigger. And I think that's where the amazement lies, because sometimes we just think about, let's think of something ordinary, of brushing your teeth. We go in there every day, we brush our teeth, and it's kind of rote. We don't think about it. But then when you start thinking about, um, you know, who makes the toothpaste? How do they get it in the tube? You know, um, so many different flavors of toothpaste. What it does, how oral health is important. I mean, I can just go on and on and on about that. I think because I'm going to the dentist shortly. There's a lot of dentist on my brain, but um, the point is that you see that. Why are we fascinated with rainbows?
Mm.
Because they don't happen that often. So there's a certain amazement about it, and then when you get a double rainbow, it's like, wow.
Or a triple.
What? Or triple, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a triple in person. Um, but the whole idea of finding the amazing, the phenomenal, the incredible in the ordinary, in the everyday. And sometimes we find that in the painful places.
I think I'm finding it there a lot more than I realized, even in my relationships. If I'm willing to look, I there's a lesson, like when that frustration or that anger comes up, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden I can recognize a story I've been telling myself.
Exactly. And that's the thing, when you have that attitude of amazement, when you're like, I'm going to live in radical amazement, those things become present. If we get wallowed in the muck of everyday living, or if we become accustomed to the mundane of the everyday living, so it could be, either way, where we don't experience, all we're experiencing is pain, and we're experiencing, or we have a lack of joy in
Mm.
our lives. But looking and saying, wow, okay, that's kind of cool, and just seeing things. And sometimes I'll just walk out of my house, and I'll feel the wind on my face, and there's just something about it that's just like, wow. And in that moment, that briefest of moments, I'm experiencing that awe,
Mhm.
and trying to capture that moment to moment is not always easy.
No. You're reminding me of a question. One of the questions I like to keep up: how will I be surprised today? And I'll never forget Dr. Fred Blum. He said, what would happen if you walked around today being surprised at everything, like you're seeing it for the first time and purposefully doing it, right? It was so beautiful. It was kind of funny, right? And I love to laugh, but it was so beautiful because, you know, all of a sudden, my chair is amazing. The fact that it's almost pure energy, it's nothingness, but in this world of reality, I can sit on it. That's beautiful. If we go into quantum physics, or yeah, physics or something like that. Like those those things, like, going outside, like, it's been cloudy and blue skies. It's really weird, like we're on the edge of a storm. So if I look one way, I'm like, whoa, look at those clouds. They're dark and troublesome, right? And then I look the other way and I'm like, oh, that blue sky, and look at those cotton clouds. And in that moment, everything is I can be in awe of that.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I'm in awe with when I have that awe in my relationships with other people, when I'm
Explain
open.
that.
Well, you know so I have relationships. You and I know each other pretty well, and I'm always open though to the surprise.
Mm,
Because if I stick to my idea of who Angela is, in my mind, you will never be allowed to change.
right.
But if I'm open to, I have an idea of who Angela is. Who is she going to be today? Who is she going to be in this moment?
Oh, I love that. Like you're not locking me into an archetype. That
Exactly. Because I mean, I know I change so much. You know, if I'm in, if I'm in pain for whatever reason, I know my behavior and my attitude is very different. Because I tend to be focusing on it. I don't want to be in pain. I want to feel better. You know, people, you're bothering me today. Leave me alone. You can relate to that one, huh?
I can't listen because I'm in pain, because I'm over here managing my pain, like literally, as you're talking, I'm counting my breath in and my breath out. And I'm trying to not ignore, but breathe through the burning and the suffering and still participate in this conversation. So I get that
Yeah,
100%.
you know. So so I'm saying all that. So I know in those moments I'm changing. Who I am at this moment is going to be different from the next moment because it's a culmination of everything that's going on. The sensory perceptions, you know, pain or feeling of the wellness is part of that. Right now it's kind of cold, and I wish I would have put on wool socks because my feet are cold. Um, I,
How fascinating. I'm going to be amazed that your feet are cold.
not that you needed to know that, but here the point is that I have these perceptions about myself because I have the full sensory perception of, you know, sight, sound, touch, taste, hearing, and so I will perceive the world different. Now we may have some shared experiences because if we're in the same environment, we may be doing that. Or there have been times where you wish you had your wool socks on because your feet were cold, um, and you can relate to that. But because we're in different places right now, we're not in the same room together. I don't know what your sensory experience is. We don't have that same shared sensory experience, other than us talking and seeing each other on camera. So all that being said is, if I have all those changes within myself, why can't I allow you to have those same changes? And then my reaction to you is the amazement is, what, how is Angela going to show up today?
Mm, yeah, which gives me a lot of freedom. And even living with other people, I've got my kids and then I'm my caregiver that's here 12 hours out of the day. Um, that even though we're in each other's space a lot, I'm still not in their head. And even though we have a lot of experience together, I still have not had the same exact experiences they have had. And even if I did have the same experiences they had, they would have been interpreted from my emotional place, right? At my, what's this? I forgot. There's a word. My perspective, it's something else. But anyway, so the bottom line is that perception and perspective are the deciding factors which lead to choice. And so if my perspective is that other people can't change and my perception is they don't change, and I tell myself that story, then they could never, then when they do behave differently, then I actually might behave in a way that insists on them behaving the other way. Like I might inadvertently push some buttons or um, question why they're doing it that way in a way that makes them feel wrong. It's like I love the idea Brian Fretwell has of the positive assumption questions instead of the negative assumption questions. So making a negative assumption would be that uh, well, so here's a positive assumption of a failure question. So what strengths have you gained from a failure in the last year, right? Uh, or I could have a negative assumption. What did, I'm trying to think of a negative assumption question now.
Well, you could just say, "How did you fail last year?"
Right, which leaves it open to to how they're going to interpret it. Are they going to look at their strengths, or are they going to look at their failure at the fact that they just failed?
Right. And so, here, I'm going to go back to our quote: "To be spiritual is to be amazed." So when you know, we can stay in that whole idea of the ego, of our perceptions, of our reality as we see it, you know, my reality of you is one thing. I could, I know, we've talked about this. Sometimes when my wife is a little bit cranky, I call her Miss Cranky Pants, and but I have to be like, okay, is Cranky Pants going to show up today? No, I have to be who's going to show up today, you know, and then maybe point out that today you're being a little bit cranky, or you're being Miss Cranky Pants. Um, and instead of assuming that, okay, every day she's going to be Miss Cranky Pants. Um, but to have in that spiritual kind of places is that places that allows for the change, that allows for the transformation of whatever is happening on, the transformation of thinking, the transformation of perception.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there. It's reminding me of when I was teaching heart rhythm meditation at my sister's school. And my emotion, I was struggling maintaining, uh, well, staying in a good mindset that day. And I finished and I came out of the class and I'm like, hey, what can I do better? And my sister said, I don't know what you're talking about. You did just fine. And then I get to the car. And, so I get to the car, and in the car, I tell my caregiver, yeah, I don't think it went so well, but my caregiver and I kind of will challenge each other. So I didn't even let her challenge me. I just said, oh, well, wait, hold on a second. What did I see? I saw that kid participating, this kid not participating the way I thought participation looked, but still participating. I saw another, so almost all of them were participating. And then I was like, oh, well, the reality of it was me and my emotion that was basically interpreting their behavior in that moment as not so good. And so sometimes it's like, ooh, was that me or was it them? Are they in that place or am I in that place? Like, I have to really check it. And then I have to go back to super basics. What did I see, hear, feel, whatever, like it's hard. And it's even harder
Yeah.
at home. Okay. It is really hard at home.
Well, I'll tell you. So this past weekend, I went to my parents, and um, they needed some help with things. One of the things was to get the Christmas stuff down from the attic, to help them take it down, and to also, my mom got a new TV because she wanted a smart TV. Because my dad hogs the other TV, and so she can't watch what she wants to watch. So that way, they can have their own TVs. And then my dad got a new computer because his other one died. And they're getting older, and the technology sometimes is a little bit overwhelming. And so I get over there, and I'm starting the process of setting everything up. And like, but don't you need to do this? Don't you need to do that? Set up this, set up that. And I'm like, first things first, let me do this first. And then I realized, I knew what to do, but they didn't. So I knew I had to take a step back and explain, okay, I have to do this first, before I can do what you want me to do. And this is why. And once I took that step back, instead of leaning into the dysregulation of the anxiety of getting everything set up, I was able to take, that that breath and be like, okay, I'm I know they asked me to help because the technology is a little overwhelming. So instead of leaning into that anxiety, I'm going to be amazed by it and use it as an opportunity to explain.
Ooh, yeah. Be amazed by the anxiety and what was showing up. So then you could be curious because it was amazing. Like
Hmm.
that's where it's like be childlike. Everything's amazing to children. Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
what is that? What does that mean for me?
Yeah. If I can just tell a quick story, so one of the members at church, they were coming home from or going to Thanksgiving, and they were passing, and the little boy was like, "Wow, look at that grass!" And it was just tall prairie grass on the side of the road, and he was amazed because I guess he had never seen grass that tall before, and we were just like, "Oh, it's grass." Or his parents were like, "Oh, it's just grass." But being able to take that step back and do that. And so for my parents, being able to take that step and being like, yeah, this technology is a little overwhelming for them, but to treat it as, okay, that frustration is amazing. I can help them bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
That was where the amazement was, that I could help them bridge the gap.
Right. Right after you checked your anxiety. Then
Right. Because like you say, being with family, the whole patterns come out.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day and they said something like, yeah, isn't it Byron Katie that says something to the effect of, you think you've done some work? Go hang out with your family. You'll see if you're.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Oh my goodness. You know, so and that's, to me, that's amazing, you
Yeah.
know,
Isn't that
that
beautiful that we can go check with our families, how we react? Like, we want to get angry and blame them, and it's their fault because they behave that way, and we don't want to take a look at ourselves. Like, this is me, and I have to remember, oh no, that's not true.
now I'm going to go tie back into the quote. Never treat life casually. Isn't our family the people we treat life most casually with?
Ooh. Yeah, and we make so many assumptions about them and the stories we tell. So yeah, yesterday I was talking to someone who had an injury. They were doing something under a boat and ended up tearing off their hand, but that's not the point. So they went the
My
point
gosh.
is they, well, not their whole hand, they like a piece of a finger. And anyway, I can't remember all the words, but it was all medical words. And the next time they went back, they had to do training because this is a job, and the very first training was a water training with and then the assumption that was made was that every time that more injuries happen in training, even though it's supposed to be safe. And I'm like, that's really interesting thought right there. Explain to me, how you came to that conclusion. And I wonder if it's true. How do you know it's true? And again, those assumptions, right? When we get into those assumptions, it can really injure us. Even by making the assumption that now at training everyone gets injured, right? Like, let's say that's the assumption. What am I going to notice at training, and what are the stories I'm going to tell myself? you know like, I'm having to work on my stories consistently with the pain overriding my senses. Like, I have to keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. It is a lot of mental work. um, And it's possible, I think.
I can just plug my show, like Breaking the Lens of Bias, those biases that we hold,
Yeah.
the stories we tell ourselves.
Well, we
And
don't even
that's
realize it.
right, right. We don't, and so, so that's kind of this conversation is kind of the foundation for breaking your biases.
Yeah, the first thing in breaking a bias, I think, is becoming self-aware and really doing that work, sitting in the silence and starting to recognize, and it takes a long time to start recognizing the stories that come up. uh, Um, but it's also only something that we can do for ourselves. But I'll tell you what, there's a really neat trigger that I've started to use when I start feeling frustrated or angry in a conversation. Hmm, what story am I telling myself right now? Because usually it's not a helpful one. So we are over time, but yes, please check out Kat's show, Breaking the Lens of Bias. Absolutely. And then, as we stated earlier in the show, we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus. We're not sure how long that's going to be. We might show up for some surprise pop ups. We'll see. We don't know. We have no idea. We're going to live in the curious unknown.
Yes, we are. But again, please go back and revisit past shows if you like what you see. Feel free to contact us on social media if there's something you'd like to see in
Yeah.
any of our shows. That might be a topic for a pop up if we
Yeah.
decide to go that way. Um, I want to wish everyone a happy holidays, and we will see you. We're not going away forever. We'll be back.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next time.